Hey, everybody. I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the word. And today, that word is frustrate. Frustrate. Now, you see that chair up against a doorknob, right? You say, well, that's not just frustrating. That's just plain out keeping me from getting in the door. And that's exactly what Jesus is describing when he's talking to the Pharisees and talking about the Pharisees. Here in Matthew chapter 23 today, you have seven woes to the Pharisees. And typically from Old Testament prophecy, you see the woes is more of a declaration of condemnation against them. Now, why were they being condemned? They were being condemned because of the things that they have said, the things that they have done, and the attitudes they have displayed throughout it all. Now, if you remember, the Sermon on the Mount was at the beginning of the gospel, was trying to show everybody everything that was already there, but that maybe they weren't really getting to the root of the original meaning, right? So, like, you've committed murder if you've even harbored hate towards another one, right? That something to that extent. It's always been there. It just they didn't see it. So in Jesus's ministry, right, he is described and he's expounded on these things, and he is taught, and the people have so many people believed, and so many people turned from their wicked ways, and so many of those who, the lower rung of society accepted it, but these high religious people did not. And so as he's beginning to speak to the Pharisees, it's as though they were so knowledgeable that they could not accept they've been wrong. Notice what he says, one verse today, Matthew 23, verse 13. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. See, we think about that picture of that chair up against the door. The bad thing is that's really not quite exactly what they were doing. They had locked the door from the outside and then were standing in front of it, barricading it, keeping anybody else from trying to get in. And what does he mean by that? I mean, were they really keeping people from getting to the kingdom of God, getting into heaven? Were they keeping people from getting saved? And the sad truth is yes, they were. Why? Because they were being turned away by the scribes and Pharisees and what they were saying. They were being led astray. And so that's where that word frustrate, they were frustrating the plans of God. They were frustrating the will of God. And they were really preventing and frustrating people from getting saved. Now, you might say, well, man, I'll never do that. Sad truth is that many of us, unfortunately, have probably turned someone away from the Lord. Just stop and think about for a moment times where your attitudes or your actions or your words, right, proclaiming religious freedom as the Pharisees did, but yet then putting this weight and this heaviness on everybody as they were doing by not following through. Jesus tells them earlier, he says, look, you can listen to everything these guys say, but don't follow their example because they don't practice what they preach. How many people would see people that claim to be religious and then see the way that they act and say, if that is God, if that is the gospel, I want no part of it. And unfortunately, people see that in our society so much today. They see it in churches across America and across the world today. But let's make sure, right, before we cast judgment too much on the scribes and Pharisees, right? That's God's place to judge. Jesus is the one that is giving these woes to them, proclaiming these woes to them. Let's make sure he wouldn't be proclaiming the same to us today. Oh, look at you, Baptist preacher, Baptist church member. Look at you who claims to be a Christian. Look at you who says all these things. Look at you who wears the Christian t-shirts, carries the Bible, talks about God, preaches about God, sings about God, invites people to church, does all the great things at church, goes to all the events at church, but knows nothing of the true heart of God and knows nothing about really inviting others in And so, by our examples, are we actually turning people away? Today, I think we would all do well to reflect on our own lives and then spend a lot of time in prayer saying, God, help me to be a better example. Help me to be one who would not frustrate others from getting to you. God, let me be a pathway to where they can find you. As Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. So let others follow us and not be frustrated by us. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.